What's going on, everybody? Going to be starting a new series today called Conspiracy You Tell Me. Now, in just about all my videos, except for probably the political rant ones, I generally can find a way to rope in some sort of conspiracy theory, I put in quotation marks. Now, there are a lot of ones that I am pretty familiar with, some that I'm not, but know a little bit about. But today I want to talk about the JFK Jr. Carolyn Bassett Q conspiracy. I'm not entirely familiar with it. There's a lot of stuff that are still coming to light in lieu of that. But you guys tell me, what do you guys know about JFK Jr. and his wife's death in, I believe it was July 16th, 1999? I know it was 1999. But in the Q, or I guess should say the QAnon, because apparently there is a difference between Q and QAnon. But apparently, according to them, JFK Jr. is still alive and well, as is his wife. Kayleigh McEnany is one of four of their secret children, and the Kennedys were all about secret children and secret siblings. So that wouldn't surprise me. And when you look at pictures, which I will try to include, McEnany looks a lot like JFK and Carolyn Bassett. I think if she is related, she definitely resembles Carolyn, and the nose is a huge seller for me. But a lot of people think that JFK Jr. faked his death, and this is all a revenge plot against the government for what they supposedly did to his father, JFK. Now, there is some speculation that JFK also faked his death. I have seen some pictures that very well could possibly be JFK. I have a little bit harder time buying that JFK is still alive and well. Not going to say that I don't believe it 100%. I know there's a lot of sketchy things the government does that is very hard to wrap my head around, but it is still entirely plausible because the government is very secretive. They hide a lot of things even though they shouldn't. But in my crazy wackadoo brain, it makes sense. It makes sense that JFK Jr. would be alive. It makes sense that this would be a revenge plot if he is indeed the head of Q, or at least a higher up who knows a lot about everything and what happens with Q drops. Because no one can really know who is behind Q drops because they are, for the most part, entirely anonymous. Nobody really knows who anybody is unless somehow, some way you know of somebody, say a friend, who does Q drops and just know who that person is. But nobody really knows who the head of Q is, supposedly. I kind of don't buy that. I feel like somebody has to know, and that somebody has to tell somebody. And, it's a whole chain reaction, but at the same time, a secret is meant for really one person. If you got to tell it to another, you do, but, secrets are, the fewer the better. So to me, it is plausible to think of that way, but at the same time, you know what that could do to the entire government? If they are all alive, if JFK's alive, if Junior's alive, I mean, just think of what that could do. Just think of how far back the deep state goes, and some even say it's gone back even further than the 1960s. I mean, some speculate 1871, which makes sense because that was when the United States became a corporation and not a country, and no, not a corporation like Microsoft or Apple. But it's plausible. I can see more of the deep state around the 60s with Kennedy, maybe even the start of the 1900s with Woodrow Wilson and the Federal Reserve central banking system, which Trump, I believe, helped dismantle part of the system, or he was going to try in his second term. I'm not entirely sure, but it's amazing the lengths the government will go to silence those who don't fit their agenda, who don't conform. We see that with a lot of people, like with the Clintons, Hillary, who have been mysteriously killed. And, several months back, some have said that Paul Walker was killed by the Clintons because he was going to testify about some shady stuff with the Children's Foundation, which again, entirely plausible because we all know the Clintons are part of the Hollywood elite pedo ring, Pizzagate. But it really is plausible in my brain. And it makes sense. I mean, it is the Kennedy family that we're talking about, which again, I don't get the whole why people like the Kennedys so much. They were extremely corrupt, just like pretty much any other presidential family. Or I should say political family, because they were corrupt long before Kennedy was even in office. But, I mean, just look at, I believe it was Ted Kennedy killed his secretary. You know, watch Chappaquiddick if you haven't already. But it's amazing. It's easy for me to wrap my head around. Is it far-fetched? Maybe. But I think it is very believable. I mean, we all know these people have been in government way too long. I believe Bush was in on the killing of JFK if he's actually dead, which either way, doesn't matter if he's alive or dead, if he faked his death or not, Bush, I believe, was still in it. Just look at Operation Zapata, and I'll try and do a video on that. I mean, I could talk about JFK's death for hours, because there is so much evidence to prove that Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill JFK. I have been to the Grassy Knoll, I've been to Dealey Plaza, I've seen the 6th floor museum, seen the book depository, and I can be 100% certain that Oswald did not kill Kennedy. Did he play a role in it? Maybe. Was he a patsy? I believe he was. Did he shoot the gun and it hit Kennedy? Maybe. But with how guns work, and I know how they work, entry and exit wounds, Oswald did not send the kill shot that killed Kennedy. And that is a fact. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that JFK Jr. is alive and well? Do you think Carolyn Bassett and even JFK himself is alive and well? Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. And if you have any evidence to say definitively otherwise, or to even go along with my points, please include them. I would love to read them. But I genuinely believe that it is very, very plausible that JFK Jr. is indeed alive. And it would be very interesting to see if he is. And some have said he is going under the alias Victor Fusca. I believe that's what it is. F-U-S-C-A. I could be wrong. But I've seen very compelling pictures of him and his wife, and of Kayleigh McEnany, who, so let me tell you, looks exactly like Carolyn Bassett. Which I guess would mean that Ryan McEnany, Kayleigh's sister, would also be to one of the 4 of Secret Children, because she looks a lot like Kayleigh as well. So, I don't know. Do you think this is a plausible theory? I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts. After all, this is conspiracy. You tell me. So, am I really crazy? Am I just a far-out wackadoo conspiracy nut job? I mean, you guys know, you patriots know just how far the government will go to silence others, for people to conform, for things to stick to their narrative. We see that today, in fact, with day 2 of the unconstitutional impeachment trial. I mean, and this is a whole nother rabbit hole I could go down, but you can't impeach a private citizen like Trump unless Q is somehow right that Donald Trump is president, and all of these people, like Joe Biden and Kamala, are just staging something. Because as Q says, what makes a great movie? Great actors. So, are they acting? Is Trump really president and we just don't know? Is he behind the scenes? And where is Trump? Nobody's seen Trump for quite a while. He hadn't made any public appearances from what I've heard and seen. And, I've seen a few discrepancies with Q posts. And, I'm just going to put that out there. Never have been a follower or supporter of Q. I follow Q to the extent that their Q drops are interesting. That I do believe that some of them do have some weight to them. But, I don't know. Q's has some interesting thoughts, just like the JFK Jr. theory. and some other things, but I don't know. I think they're wrong about quite a few things. But I'll leave it at that. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think I'm on the right track? Am I just far out there? Let me know. Hit that subscribe button. Smash that like button. Gotta get this shadow ban out of the way. Liking and sharing and subscribing helps remove that algorithm. We're beating it. So let me know your thoughts. Like, share, and subscribe. This is your host, President Arwal. Freedom Speaks.